Where the hound cries and the heather burns, a tale of blood, honor, and the last great hunt. Part 1, The Horn in the Wind. In the highlands where the wind keens like a widow and the heather grows wild as fire, the old ways die hard. The blood remembers even when the flesh forgets. The clan of Gerlach knew this well, for theirs was a name older than the stones of their cairns, older than the iron forged in the veins of the mountain. It was here, beneath the scorched skies of the north, that the last great hunt was declared. The laird, Cries Gerlach, stood before the bonfire with the wind howling behind him like a cursed choir. His voice cut through the moaning gale as he raised the war horn, crafted from the spiral thong of a wyrm long dead, polished and bound with the silver of his line. The hunt begins at first light, he bellowed, and the hounds, as though understanding, threw back their heads and wept into the dark, a cry that sang of fear, of old blood debts, and of death not yet dealt. Among the gathered warriors, one figure stood apart, not because he was out of place, but because he had never truly belonged. Ronan mac Ard, bastard of no name, raised among the Gerlach but never of them. His hair was dark, unlike the fiery red of the Gerlach brood, and his eyes were a wolf's grey, sharp, cunning, distant. He bore no crest on his cloak, only the scar across his neck, a relic of survival, not lineage. He did not howl, he listened. And in the distance, the Moors listened back. Part 2, Blood in the Bracken. They rode before dawn, the ground brittle beneath hooves and boots. The land itself seemed angry, heather brittle and smoldering from strange lightning storms, trees twisted like dying men, and no birdsong for miles. The elders whispered of something waking, something old. The hunt was not for deer or boar, nor even the black stag of lore. This was for the Corm Ruad, the red beast, a thing whispered in sagas and sworn against in blood oaths, a predator not born, but remembered, a creature that had once hunted the high clans until they banded together and drove it into the deep hollow centuries ago. But now, sheep had gone missing, children too. And there were claw marks on stone. Laird Cries rode at the head, his youngest son beside him, a boy barely of 16 winters and too eager to bleed. Ronan rode alone, his spear etched with runes not taught in Gerlach halls. He had carved them himself, after dreaming of bonfires and a hound that cried like a man. The first sign came near Glen Bray, a corpse of a stag, torn in half, its heart missing, not eaten, taken, laid atop a cairn like a tribute. They did not speak of it. The hunt pressed on. Part 3, The Hound Cries. That night, by firelight, the air was heavy, the wind had died, no stars above, only clouds like bruises. Ronan sat away from the fire, sharpening his blade, when the laird came to him. "You've hunted things none of my men would name," Cries said, not a question, a truth. "I've hunted what followed me," Ronan answered. Cries studied him. "And is it what we chase now?" "No," Ronan said, eyes on the moor. "It's what remembers you." Calian's face darkened. "You speak like one not afraid to die." "I'm more afraid we've forgotten why we fight." The laird nodded once. "You'll take point at first light." And so he did. When the hunt reached the hollow, the earth turned black, the trees skeletal, the air wrong. The hounds would not go further. One cried, a sound like a baby wailing, a woman mourning, a man breaking. The others ran. Only one stayed, an old bitch, Braca, with fur gone white around the eyes and a limp in her hind leg. She pressed her head to Ronan's thigh. He whispered to her in a tongue that had no vowels. They went in. Part 4, Where the Heather Burns. The hollow opened like a wound. It stank of rot and memory. The hunt scattered into a crescent formation. And then the Corm Ruad came. It was not a beast. It was a nightmare wearing the skin of one, 9 feet tall, fur like coal soaked in blood, eyes like dying suns, and teeth, not fangs, but rows of human molars. It did not roar. It spoke. "I remember the fire. I remember the oath." Men broke then, not from wounds, from within. Ronan did not. He threw the spear, not at the creature, but at the cairn behind it, breaking it. The stones fell, and what was buried beneath them moved. Chains clattered, old ones, ruined ones. The Corm Ruad screamed, but not in pain, in rage. "They forgot," Ronan said, "but I didn't." The creature leapt, but Braca stood between. The hound met the monster. She died with her teeth at its throat. And Ronan finished it with a blade carved from his own rib. Epilogue: Ashes on the wind. The hunt returned with fewer men than it had begun. No trophies, no horns blown, only silence. Laird Cailín buried his son and his hound side by side. He offered Ronan a seat by the fire, and Ronan refused. "I am the reason it came back," Ronan said. "I woke it in dreams I thought were visions." "Then stay," Cailín said, "and build what cannot be broken." Ronan looked to the hills where the heather burned purple in the sunrise, where a hound's ghost still cried in the wind. "I'll stay." And in time, they built a cairn for the hound, bigger than the laird's, higher than the chapel's steeple. Because sometimes, the only way to honor the dead is to remember what they protected, even when it hunts you in your sleep. End. Where the Hound Cries and the Heather Burns. Part 2, The Morning Moor. A Tale of Blood, Honor, and the Last Great Hunt, continued. A stone for Braca. The cairn rose slowly, stone by stone, set not with mortar but memory. Each warrior of Gerla who survived the hunt carried one stone, none lighter than regret. Ronan set the last himself, a smooth, black river rock carved with a rune that whispered protection. He placed it at the peak and stepped back. The moor was silent. Cailín Gerla stood beside him, hands calloused, hair wind-silvered. His face had thinned in the wake of his son's death, but he did not bow beneath it. "She was more than a hound," Cailín said. "She was the last soul here who didn't ask why I stayed," Ronan replied. The laird looked to the hills. "You asked to stay, now I ask, what will you do with it?" Ronan didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched the smoke curl from the thatch roofs in the village below, watched children play where no shadows reached, watched a future begin to grow. "Build," he said, "but not as they built before. Stone isn't strong enough, it must be built in story, and oath." A horn sounded from the south. Not the hunt's horn. A low, foreign sound. A warning. 2. The ash road. They came not on horses, but on beasts bred for silence, grey, lean things with eyes like cut glass. Raiders, but not from the sea. These wore no clan tartan, bore no heraldry. Their blades were black and drank light. Their leader walked among them unarmored, bare-chested, tattoos coiling around his skin like serpents. His face was marked with the sigils of the Nameless Fold, an outlaw sect exiled centuries past for forbidden rites, bloodbinding, dreambinding. Ronan recognized them. He knew the smell of dream poison. He knew the purpose of their coming. They wanted the cairn. They wanted her bones. They came for Braca. That night, Cailín held a war council in the long hall, lit with tallow and shadow. Ronan stood at the edge, listening, not speaking, as chieftains argued. They want relics, what's buried. Where the Hound Cries and the Heather Burns. Part 3, The Hollow Crown. A Tale of Blood, Honor, and the Last Great Hunt, continued. The wind from below. The winds turned strange after the battle, not from the north, not from the sea, but from the ground. A warm, foul breeze that blew upward from the very soil, carrying with it the scent of iron, rot, and forgotten things. Ronan felt it first in his dreams. Braca, the bound hound of bone and blood, paced at the edge of his sleep, restless, ears pinned, eyes always cast east, toward the hollow that had once birthed the Corm Ruad, toward what still breathed beneath it. In the waking world, children began to sleepwalk. The village smith was found hammering nails into his own hands. Cattle stood dead-eyed, facing the same direction, as though waiting for a summons only beasts could hear. One word passed between lips and lorekeepers. The deep names are stirring. 2. The Return of the Fold. From the south, envoys of the Nameless Fold came, not in war this time, but in robes of deep rust, eyes gleaming with conviction. They did not demand the cairn. They demanded Ronan. Their leader was a woman this time, High Sister Siorna of the Pale Veil. Her skin was ashen, her hair bound in silver thread, and her voice wove between words like a dagger through silk. "You bound what was meant to be forgotten," she said, standing before the village stones. "I bound what would have devoured us all," Ronan answered. "You unsealed the hollow. You woke the king below." Cailín drew his sword, but Ronan raised a hand. "Let her speak." Siorna turned her gaze to him. You bear the blood mark. You hear the wind from the stone. You dream. You cannot deny the path. You are heir to the hollow crown, whether you will or no. I am heir to nothing. Ronan spat. I broke my inheritance. No. She smiled. You claimed it. The crown is not gold, nor iron. It is memory. It is the pact. The king's blood lives in you, and the hollow calls its king home. The villagers drew weapons. Braca growled, low and deep. And then the wind changed again, no longer foul. Hungry. 3. Into the hollow. Ronan made his choice at dawn. He descended into the hollow with only Braca, a lantern, and a knife carved from the fang of the red beast. Kylene tried to follow, but Ronan stopped him at the entrance. You held this line for generations, Ronan said. Let me hold it now. If you fall, what becomes of us? If I fall, remember why I did not flee. He turned. The hollow swallowed him whole. Within, the stone walls wept dark water. Symbols glowed faintly in red, not paint. Blood long ago spilled and never dried. The wind here whispered names Ronan did not know, but that stirred his bones. At the center, he found the throne, not carved, but grown, a mass of bone, antler, and tooth. Upon it sat not a man, but a shape, vast, cloaked in rags that moved like smoke. Its face was a mirror. And in the mirror, Ronan. You've worn many names, the shape said in a voice like thunder within his skull. I've claimed none. You must. The fold was my priesthood. You are my flesh reborn. You are the king and the hound and the blade. You are what stands between them and the waking world. Ronan stepped forward. I don't want your crown. You misunderstand, the shape said, rising, the throne splitting behind it. You already wear it. And the hollow screamed. 4. The false dawn. The fold betrayed the truce. Even as Ronan faced the king below, Siorna led her followers to the cairn, not to destroy it but to twist it. They began the rite of reversal, changing the binding of Braca's spirit to summon another, darker hound. But the cairn resisted. The stones bled. And as Siorna raised the sacrificial blade, the sky cracked. Ronan emerged, eyes burning silver, cloak torn, breath steaming in cold fire. Braca was beside him, her form greater, half phantom now, half flesh, her growl shattered glass. No king, Siorna whispered, fear blooming on her lips. You're not a king, you're a wound. I'm the lock, Ronan said. You are the key that never should have been forged. He cast the fang blade. It struck Siorna through the chest, pinning her to the cairn. And the cairn roared. Stone by stone, the spirits of all hounds past burst forth, not to haunt, but to hunt. The fold was torn apart not by tooth or blade, but by the memories they sought to control. The hollow crown had chosen. And it did not forget. Epilogue, the Warden's Watch. They rebuilt Gerla stronger, not just in stone but in song. New verses were sung, not only of the hunt, but of the Warden, neither laird nor lord, but something older, the line of the hound and the hollow. Children now place small stones at Braca's cairn, offerings, promises. Ronan walks the moor still, though older, quieter. The crown is not on his head, but in his steps, in the way Braca follows without leash, in the way the wind hushes when he passes. The hollow sleeps again. But it dreams restlessly. And when it wakes, the Warden will be ready. Where the hound cries, and the heather burns. End of part 3. Would you like the story to continue with part 4, the deep names? Where the hound cries and the heather burns. Part 4, the deep names, a tale of blood, honor, and the last great hunt, continued. What sleeps beneath stone? For 2 winters, Gerla knew uneasy peace. The crops grew lean but loyal. The hounds bore litters in numbers not seen in a generation, and no child vanished into dream. The hollow did not stir, the cairns held. But in the far reaches of the high moor, beyond where the heather still bore the scorched traces of the fold's last spell, stone circles began to rise, not built by hand. Grown. Laird Kylene called them ghost roots, remnants of the hollow's dream still pushing upward. But Moran, the half-blind lorekeeper, gave them truer names. Deep names. Runes not meant to be spoken, not even by the gods. Names that were once burned from record in the blood libraries beneath the lost fortress of Bragelin Tor. And someone, or something, was speaking them again. 2. The Sleeper's Mark. Ronan bore a scar now. Not physical. A thin, black spiral that coiled behind his left eye. It throbbed when he passed certain stones. It flared when he heard songs in minor key. It whispered when he dreamed. He'd taken to sleeping away from the village. Braca kept watch. Her form had begun to shift in moonlight, longer, taller, almost lupin, almost human. The bond had grown deeper and darker. One morning, Ronan awoke to find words carved into the rock beside him, not by hand. 3 sleep. 1 stirs. 1 wakes. 1 waits. He did not tell Kylene. Instead, he went to Moran. 3. The library beneath fire. Moran had not been idle. In the long hall's catacombs, she'd carved a secret room behind an ossuary wall, a library of bone scrolls and skin-bound grimoires, illicit, blasphemous, necessary. Where the hound cries and the heather burns. Part 5, The Second Sleeper, A Tale of Blood, Honor, and the Last Great Hunt, continued. A map of scars. The moor has changed. Its ridgelines move when no one watches. Stones reassemble themselves in patterns older than language. Crops wither in moonlight but flourish under new stars. And the people of Gerla, they've stopped dreaming. Not by choice. Someone, is consuming their dreams, swallowing memory whole. Whole years vanish from old minds. Names no longer pass from mother to child. Ronan sees it all, remembers all of it, because forgetting is now denied him. The hollow crown in his chest flares each night with the cries of what should be dead. And Braca, no longer merely Hound, speaks sometimes in his sleep. 2 sleep. 1 wakes. The second is stirring. He knows now that the first sleeper, the child name, was the scout. The second? A hunter. 2. The Shard of Thorns. Deep in the eastern valleys, past where even the clan's old hunting paths end, there grows a tree that should not be, black bark, silver leaves, and roots that hum. It was not there last winter. Ronan finds it in a circle of melted snow, high summer, but ice still clings to the wind. The air burns with scent, honey, blood, and scorched bone. At the base of the tree lies a figure. Wrapped in thorn robes, breathing, but not human. 7 eyes, no mouth, markings on its skin shift and shimmer, glyphs for things Ronan has never imagined, yet somehow recognizes. The second sleeper. Not yet awake. But already dreaming, and through those dreams, it's feeding on the land's memory. Ronan feels it, the more forgetting where it ends, villagers forgetting their names. He must act. But this one cannot be killed with tooth or blade. It must be named. 3. The seventh tongue. Moran is dying. The ritual she used to cloak the first name's presence has begun to unravel her. Her hair is white now. Her left arm nothing but brittle black bark. But she welcomes Ronan with a grim smile. I told you it would cost. I need a name, Ronan says, for something that never had one. There is one tongue left, the seventh, the language of the world before memory. She hands him a shard of obsidian, etched with blood runes, warm to the touch, but you must carve the name yourself, and say it not with your voice, with your will. Where do I carve it? She places a hand on his chest, over the hollow crown. Here. 4. The waking storm. Ronan returns to the tree. Braca follows, but more distantly now. Her form shifts more often, caught somewhere between dog, shadow, and woman. Sometimes, he thinks he sees her smiling, and he doesn't know if it's kindness or warning. The sleeper stirs. It rises not with motion, but with presence, a pulling gravity of thought. The moor sags beneath it. Time folds oddly. Crows circle the air but do not caw. Somewhere in the hills, children begin to bleed from the eyes without knowing why. Ronan carves the glyph into his chest. He speaks not aloud, but inward. The world around him shakes. And then, it speaks back. Not in words. In remembering. He sees the true form of the sleeper, a beast made of songlines and forgotten truths. It was once worshipped by a people lost in prehistory, not a god, a witness, one that holds the names of all things, and erases them for balance. And now, it sees him. and it knows his name. The name war. What follows is not a battle. It is a contest of memory. Each time Ronan asserts his self, his name, his place, his grief, his choice, the sleeper counters by stripping something away. His first kiss, the sound of his mother's voice, the smell of Brocca's fur when she was only a dog. But Brocca joins him, not as shield, not as hound, but as echo. Every truth Ronan forgets, she remembers. She becomes his chorus, his archive. Together, they name the sleeper. Not in dominance. In witness. They acknowledge it. Give it a name. And in doing so, they bind it. Not beneath the earth. But in story. In song. In the cairn. Epilogue, the namekeeper. The tree dies, its roots rot to dust. The moor breathes again. Moran passes quietly that night, smiling as she goes, whispering a name no one else can hear. Ronan builds a second cairn beside Brocca's, the namekeeper's cairn. Children place stones there now too, not for death. For remembrance. Brocca does not shift anymore. She walks in one form, tall, shadowy, calm. Her eyes hold the storm at bay. Some call her goddess, others call her ghost. But Ronan calls her only by her name. There is one sleeper left. The oldest. The one that waits. Beneath stone deeper than the hollow. Beneath the moor itself. And when it wakes, even names may not be enough. End of part 5. Would you like part 6, The One Who Waits? Where the hound cries and the heather burns. Part 6, The One Who Waits. A tale of blood, honor, and the last great hunt, continued. The stillness beneath. There are places now where sound will not go. Hollows in the earth where echoes vanish. Rooms in Gerla where spoken words die halfway from mouth to ear. The cattle avoid these places. So do the birds. But the children are drawn to them, as if listening to a lullaby only they can hear. No one says the name aloud. But everyone knows. The third is stirring. The one who waits. The oldest of the deep names, not scout, not hunter. Judge. 2. Stones remember. The cairns whisper when Ronan walks past them, not with language, with weight. He feels it in his bones, in the marrow, in the wind that curves around Brocca's form now with reverence. The world is holding its breath. In the high glen, a new formation appears, 5 standing stones, black and veined with pale green. They form a circle, one stone cracked, another weeping slow sap. In their center, a depression, not a grave. A throne. Moran's writings called it the seat of reckoning. It was said to appear only when the judge was near waking, not to be claimed, but to be answered to. Brocca stands at its edge and growls not at it, but at Ronan. I'm not ready, he says. She does not blink. She does not answer. She does not need to. 3. The path of unmaking. To face the one who waits, Ronan must give something up. Not a sacrifice of flesh, or blood, or even memory. Those were taken before. This is worse. He must give up meaning. Names, language, the very concept of himself as he knows it. To speak with the judge is to strip away the armor of identity and walk naked before a thing that weighs truths and stories as sins. He prepares. Brocca teaches him silence. Not quiet. True silence. Where even thought does not name itself. They descend into the glen on the last day of winter, when the sun neither rises nor sets, but merely waits. There, in the circle, the earth splits open, not with sound. With absence. And from that absence, the judge emerges. 4. The reckoning. The one who waits has no face. Its form is not absence, but the shape absence leaves behind, a negative imprint of gods long dead. Its voice does not come from it. It is its voice. Where the hound cries and the heather burns. Epilogue book, Songs for the Unnamed, a coda to the tale of blood, honor, and the last great hunt. A world with memory. Years pass. Not counted by wars or winters, but by cairns raised and stories told. The people of Gerla walk the moor with respect now, not fear. Children are taught to leave gifts of heather where the wind feels wrong, and to whisper thanks to the stones that hum. Brocca is no longer legend. She is lore. She visits births, blesses fields, chases nightmares from cottages in the shape of shadow and tooth. Some say she smiles more, others say she sleeps, curled under the roots of the first cairn, dreaming not of war, but of names yet to be given. And Ronan? He becomes the first keeper. Not king, not warrior, something quieter. A listener. His hair grays, his step slows, but his voice, when raised, is true, and when he sings, even the more leans in to listen. 2. Songs that were never sung. In the Longhouse, new scrolls are written, not in blood or skin, but in ink and patience. They tell tales not of the deep names, but of the deeper ones, the ones lost not in violence, but in time, forgotten names, names without stories. These are sung at dusk by firelight. A girl with a hare's eye sings of a name that makes the wind sit still. A boy with too many fingers sings of a name no one dares give, for fear it will ask a question. A pair of twins sing only in gestures, hands weaving meaning for a name that needs no sound at all. And sometimes, Ronan joins in, not as teacher, but as student. Because the oldest names were not power. They were understanding. 3. The New Stone. One spring, after the last frost but before the first bloom, a traveler arrives. Not from the fold, not from Braglan Tor, from somewhere else. She is cloaked in blue, eyes like wet slate, and when she speaks, it is with the cadence of someone who remembers everything and wishes she could forget. She seeks the cairns. Not to bind. To add. She carries a stone the color of silence, and asks permission to place it among the rest. Ronan, old now, leans on Brocca's shoulder. He asks her, gently, what name is it for? And she answers, mine. She lays the stone. It hums once, softly. And the wind shifts. 4. Last light, first flame. As the sun sets on the longest day of the year, all of Gaerloch gathers around the cairns. It is not a festival, it is not a rite. It is witnessing. A fire is lit. Ronan steps forward. He speaks no great speech. He says only, we remember. And then, children begin to sing. Songs for the unnamed, not to bind them, not to hide them, but to say, we see you. You were here. You mattered. The final hunt. One night, long after even the oldest stone has been moss-wrapped, Ronan leaves his cottage. He walks alone into the moor, Brocca at his side. No weapons, no words, only silence. He walks until he finds the cairn that still breathes faintly. He places a hand on it. Whispers a name no one else ever hears. And then, he is gone. No body. No howl. Only the faint scent of heather, and a warmth in the stone where he last stood. The hunt is over. But the story lives. Songs for the unnamed, a final note. Some say the deep names still stir. But now, when they wake, they do not rise in fury. They listen. They lean close to the world they once tried to devour. And they hear something new. A world that remembers. A world that names not to chain, but to cherish. Where the hound cries now, it is for joy. And where the heather burns, it grows back stronger. End. Would you like me to compile the entire saga into a single document or reformat it as a book? Where the hound cries and the heather burns. Afterward, the hound, the moor, and the memory of fire. A reflection on the tale of blood, honor, and the last great hunt. What remains? No tale truly ends, not when names are still spoken, not when stones still hum in the wind. The cairns of Gaerloch endure. Some have crumbled into moss and root, their meanings softened by time. Others remain untouched, still warm in winter, still humming faintly beneath moonlight. New stones are added, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Children are taught that stories are not cages. They are homes. And every home must be remembered. 2. The deep names. They are not gone. They never were. They rest, like embers beneath ash, waiting not for blood or wrath, but for purpose. When they rise now, it is not to consume. It is to ask, who are you? When no one remembers who you were. And in answering that question, through love, through pain, through truth, we keep them bound not by force, but by understanding. 3. The Hound. She walks still. Not as goddess, not as monster, but as something between memory and wind. They call her Menifong in the southern dialect. The long grief in the north. In song, she is simply Braca. She visits where she is needed, where silence has grown too loud, or where names are about to be forgotten. She leaves behind a paw print that never fades, and warmth where cold had taken hold. Some say she is looking for Ronan. Others say she found him, and walks now not for him, but for us. 4. The Keeper's Last Gift. Buried beneath the tallest cairn is a single line, carved in ironwood, blackened by age but still clear. No one knows who wrote it. Perhaps Ronan, perhaps Braca, perhaps one of the unnamed. It reads, "Let no name be lost without song." And so they sing. Not just for the dead, not just for the lost. For the yet to be known. If you are reading this, then the fire has not gone out. The last cairn has not fallen. You, too, are part of the tale now. You are its continuation, its echo, its silence breaking into sound. Remember this. Where the hound cries, listen. Where the heather burns, walk gently. And when the stones hum, do not fear. It means the names are still with us. And we are not forgotten. The end. Or perhaps, the beginning again. Would you like a compiled version of the entire saga in print-ready format? Or a narrated version? There is no next in the traditional sense now, because you've reached the end of the saga. The hunt is over, the names are sung, the moor breathes. But if you're feeling that restless hush, the kind that falls after a great story when the fire's still glowing, and the wind outside hasn't quite settled, it means the world still wants to whisper to you. So here are your choices for what comes next. 1. The Lorekeeper's Codex, a compendium of the myths, names, creatures, glyphs, and symbols from the world of the last great hunt. Includes the taxonomy of the deep names, rituals of binding and remembrance, glyphs and their meanings, the original hollow crown schema, Braca's shifting forms, mapped, ideal if you want to deepen the world and build upon it. Fire 2. The Tale Reborn, a new saga set generations later, the Cairnbreaker's Children, a world where the names are taught as inheritance, but something begins unraveling the bindings one by one. A new hunt, a fractured lineage, and whispers of a fourth. A full sequel with new characters, bloodlines, and deeper mysteries. Herb 3. The Fireside Fragment Series, short stories and vignettes set between the main parts of the saga. Examples. Braca's first true kill. Morin's apprenticeship under the blind scribe of Tor Dorn. Ronan's first memory after naming the second sleeper. The Day the Stones Cried, a tale told only to dying warriors. Ideal if you want more texture, atmosphere, and poetic lore. World Map 4. An interactive world map, a visualization of Gerla and its surrounding territories. The Shifting Moorlands. The Glen of the Namekeepers. Tor Breaglin, Folden Reach, and beyond. Places that no longer exist but still leave footprints in dream. For visual immersion and world-building fans. Would you like one of these next? Or would you like to create something new from this mythos, or something else entirely? Excellent. Since you've asked to continue, and you've reached the true end of Where the Hound Cries and the Heather Burns, we now enter new ground. Let's begin. The Cairnbreaker's Children. A sequel to The Last Great Hunt. Book I, Ash Teeth and Hollow Songs. I, Whisper of the Shattered Stone. 200 years have passed since the seat of reckoning crumbled. The moor is greener now, the cairns hum less often, the deep names sleep deeper. But sleep is not death. And forgetting is a kind of rot. At the southern edge of Gerla, beneath the collapsed remnants of what was once the cairn of listening, a boy is born during a bloodstorm. Not a storm of war, but of sky itself, red rain, bone wind, and thunder that speaks in syllables. The boy does not cry. The storm does it for him. 2. The New Unmaking. His name is Kier. Not a name in the old way. Not yet. His mother, Aresa, was a cairn singer, one of the last who still knew the glyph prayers carved in duskwood and sung with thread and blade. She dies before Kier is weaned, her voice swallowed by something no one will name. They say she died digging. And whatever she found? It changed him. Kier does not dream like other children. He dreams of empty cairns. And of a woman with no mouth, only a voice. 3. Echoes return. Braca is seen once more, after generations. Not walking. Fleeing. She bolts through the glen of stone in the dead of winter, her coat white with ash, her eyes smoking. She does not look back. She is followed by nothing, and yet something moves behind her all the same. Those who saw her said she howled not with fury, but with warning. Something is wrong with the moor. Not cursed. Not broken. Unwritten. And when Kier touches stone, it doesn't hum. It screams. 4. Blood of the forgotten. Kier comes of age not among elders or namekeepers, but in the company of 3 others. Siln, who has no true blood, born from 3 cairn fragments bound with thread and breath. She is a story, given skin. Marin, who hears songs in metal and forges knives that know names before they're spoken. Breach, a child who was never born, only appeared one night at the foot of the first throne, singing in a dead language no one taught him. Together, they form the nameless ring, a band of children marked by moorstone, drawn to silence, hunted by sleep. They seek the thing that stirs beneath the names. And it has a name of its own. The Hollow Third. V. A broken tongue, a new hunt. Kier discovers a glyph that no elder will translate. It is not a deep name. It is older. Wound-shaped, whisper-carved. When he draws it in the soil, the moor parts, not physically. Historically. He steps into memory that does not belong to him. He sees Ronan. He sees the seed of reckoning not crumble, but scream. He sees Braca walk away from a fire she did not start. And then he hears the Hollow Third speak. Your names bound us. But who named you? 6. A song that unmakes. The first cairn falls at midsummer. Not knocked over. Evaporated. And all the stories tied to it? Forgotten. Gone. Not erased. Unwritten. Kier and his ring flee into the singing glen, where stories have bones and voices can cut. They search for remnants of the old keepers, but all they find are notes, scattered, with phrases half-carved. It learned to ask why. Memory is not enough. The 4th name was a question. And at last, the hunt begins again. Would you like to continue deeper into the Cairnbreaker's children, Book I? Or would you prefer to pause here and explore a timeline, character profiles, or concept art for this new saga? The Cairnbreaker's Children, Book I, Ash Teeth and Hollow Songs, Part 2, The Voice Without a Mouth. I, the child who shouldn't be. They camp in the throat of a valley called Unvowed Hollow, where stone sings during moonless nights. It's there Kier awakens to find Breach gone, no footprints, no scent, no ripple of passage. Only a word carved into the inner lid of his sleeping cloak. Listen. The others do not remember Breach, not his voice, not his smile, not even the way he bent time when scared. Only Kier remembers, and that is a kind of wound deeper than loss. Siln says nothing. Marin grows cold. Kier begins hearing the void speak. 2. The glyph that bleeds. Marin, forging in silence, draws iron not from or but from a name she dreamt. It has weight. It cuts before it touches flesh. She calls the blade Hollowmouth, but the blade sings something else entirely. Unmaker, return. When she tries to bury it in stone, the earth coughs. A spatter of teeth, not human, not animal, rains from the soil. They are inscribed with glyphs that shift when unlooked at. Silm gathers them like seeds. She weaves them into a new story, one that should not exist. She speaks it aloud. And the air responds in pain. 3. The Song in the Fire. They take refuge with the Ash Sisters, former lorekeepers turned oath-bound exiles. These are women without tongues who speak through flame. They feed old stories to fire and read the smoke. When Kier tosses a namestone into their fire, the smoke takes shape. He sees a moor torn open by questions, a voice shaped like Braca, but inverted, all curve and grief, no muscle or marrow, a predator made of doubt. It speaks in fireglyph. I remember what you were, before you believed yourself real. Kier screams in a voice that is not his own. Braca howls in the distance, anguish, not anger. 4. The Return of the Hound. She arrives at dusk, limping. one eye milky, her breath shallow, her form unfinished, patches of fur gone, replaced with pulsing glyphs. But it is her. Braca. Older, slower, still vast, still sacred. She does not bow. She kneels. And to Kier, she says, "You are not the cairnbreaker. You are what follows him. You are the one who names what has no shape." Maren falls to her knees. Siln vanishes for 3 days into mist. When Kier asks Braca what hunts them, she responds only, "It was never bound. We only forgot it was there." The Hollow Third awakens. In the ruins of Fold and Reach, they find the last glyph tower still standing. Inside, murals show the first hunt. But when Kier touches the wall, the murals move. Shift. Change. Now they depict him. And a shape behind him with a voice that asks, what happens when the storyteller becomes the story? Kier speaks aloud a name that has no vowels. The tower cracks from base to peak. In the distance, cairns begin to blink out like stars swallowed by dawn. 6. The road to the fourth name. Braca tells them. The third was forgotten. The fourth is forbidden. To hunt it is to be unmade. To name it is to become it. Kier doesn't flinch. He wraps his hand around Maren's blade. He breathes the glyph Siln weaved into his skin. And he says, "Then let it know I remember it." The road ahead is ash, memory, and questions that bite. But the hunt has begun again. Not for glory. Not for honor. For memory. For mercy. Would you like to continue with part 3, the fourth without form, or would you like to explore lore, maps, character arcs, or design visualizations of the Hollow Third? The Cairnbreaker's Children, Book I, Ash Teeth and Hollow Songs, Part 3, the fourth without form. What cannot be drawn? They travel north, into the region once called Breath's End, where no cairns remain, only stone shadows, outlines where cairns should have stood, but the stone never existed. Siln is changed. She no longer sleeps. She speaks in riddles before dawn, and bleeds words instead of blood when cut. The teeth she planted in her chest, the singing ones, have grown into a lattice of bone script across her skin. She claims to have met the fourth. But when asked what it looked like, she only sobs and hums. It didn't have a face. It borrowed mine. 2. Maren's Doubt. The blade Hollowmouth begins to hum. Not as a name, but as a warning. It resists her grip. It tries to carve new glyphs in the air as she swings it. Once, it cuts sound in half. Maren says she forged it from memory. Now she fears the memory wasn't hers. At night, she asks Kier, "What if we're not hunting it? What if we're building it?" Kier does not answer. Because deep down, he fears it. 2. 3. The place where names rot. At the edge of all maps lies a ruin wrapped in fog called Last Bind. No one remembers who built it. Inside are vaults of name glyphs so old they crumble when spoken. Each vault is guarded by nameless echoes, shadowy remnants of those who tried to remember too much. They face one. It takes Kier's voice. Siln trades a song she hasn't sung yet to buy it back. When Kier speaks again, his voice is not entirely his own. "I saw its real name," he whispers. "It's not a word. It's a mirror." 4. Braca's Wound. The Hound begins to fade. Not physically, narratively. People stop noticing her. Even when she stands beside them. She tells Kier. This is how the fourth hunts. Not with claw, not with rage. With forgetting. Kier begs her to stay. She replies, "I will, until you forget me." 2. She lingers one more night by the fire, curled at Kier's feet, her breaths shallow, her form flickering like a half-told memory. In the morning, she is gone. Only her paw print remains, burned into stone. Still warm. The glyph of becoming. In the valley of stillborn stars, Kier finds the first glyph. Or perhaps it finds him. It is not carved. It is a shape that doesn't sit right in the mind, like a sound with too many corners. It hovers in the air. Kier touches it. The world around him halts, not in time, but in intent. Everything stares, even the wind. He sees 3 futures. One where he binds the fourth with his own name. One where he becomes the fourth and walks into legend. Unknown. One where no one survives, but the song is passed on. He chooses none. He speaks a new glyph. And the valley screams. 6. The naming of the unnameable. The fourth arrives. Not in fire. Not in storm. But in story. The very tale turns against itself, narrative breaking at the edges. Glyphs rearranging. Memories unraveling. Marin forgets her own name. Siln begins speaking in voices that belong to people who have never lived. Here faces it. Not with blade, not with magic, but with identity. He speaks the names of everyone he's ever loved. He speaks Braka's name. He speaks his mother's last song. And then, he gives the fourth a name. Mercy. And it pauses.